Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Hales Energy Limited is African leading indigenous-owned integrated energy company. It is committed to meeting Africa's unique energy needs while aligning global sustainability goals. Having a strong focus on innovation, environmental responsibility, and community development, Hales Energy leads in the evolving energy landscape and contributes to a more prosperous Africa. Joining us is Susanyode Igiehon, MD CEO, Hales Energy's Industrial Executive and thought leader with 27 years experience spanning business management, reservoir, and petroleum energy practice. Hello, MD. Where is Hales Energy Leadership Forum 2025 held in Abuja? It's very imperative in meeting Nigeria's energy needs. That is the why question, MD.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Prof, for having me. It's quite crucial that indigenous companies need to start broadening the conversations around our contribution to Nigeria's energy future, and particularly oil production. So, as you know, a number of critical divestments have been completed. And with those divestments, the 50 to 60% of the country's oil production and gas production is now operated by indigenous companies. So it is important that our indigenous companies begin to start having the conversations that are needed for them to collaborate to meet the imperative of production growth, which our country dearly needs for energy and financial security. So it was on that basis that Hales Energies pulled together industry leaders to have a dialogue around how we are going to, around the acceleration imperatives for the Nigerian oil production growth.
All right, excellent. So what is the consensus of the experts and panelists on Nigeria meeting OPEC quota?
Yes, it's quite interesting and quite fortuitous, and congratulations to Nigeria and to the oil industry that in January, NUPRC has reported that we have met the OPEC quota for the first time. So we produced, in fact, more than the OPEC quota. We produced 1.75 million, of which about 1.5 was for crude, and the OPEC quota is crude related, and the remaining was condensate. So production growth has happened significant volumes over the past 1 year, enabled by the various interventions that has been enabled by the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the response by the various stakeholders and players in the oil industry.
Okay, so explain to us, about Hales Energy and its operation in Nigeria, and this talk about energy transition in Nigeria and the rise of indigenous oil firms doing well like Hales Energy. And congratulations on your summit. It was held yesterday in Abuja at Transcorp. Can you tell us a little bit some of the highlights of the summit you had yesterday?
Yes, thanks, Rufai. Good to see you again. So I think if I start from Hales Energies, so we are the operator of Oil Mill 17, yes, which is a block in the northern half of Rivers State. We took over the asset at about 25,000 barrels, and we have more than doubled production, both oil production and gas production over time. We have a wholly Nigerian workforce, and 95% of our contractors, both in numbers and the value of contracts we're giving out, are Nigerian. We are an emblematic example of the success that can be achieved and is going to be achieved and being achieved by indigenous companies in the oil and gas industry. We called this industry dialogue, which involved the Honorable Minister of Petroleum for Oil, the CCE of NUPRC, the MDs of leading leading indigenous companies and NNPC, to have this dialogue around what do we need to do to accelerate production further. The country has set a target of 2.1 million barrels for this year and per day, and by 2027, 2.7 million barrels of oil per day. And I think the consensus of the panel was that, one, it is achievable. And the Minister of Petroleum for Oil even said we should be working towards a more aggressive target of 2.5 million for this year when you include condensate. And two is that the ingredients that are needed to make the achievement of these targets doable are already mostly in place. And there was also the conversations around with the concerns that, with the indigenous companies taking over a large proportion of the production share, will indigenous companies deliver? And there was a resounding confidence that independents will deliver, because if you look at the track record, both in greenfield and in brownfield, in shallow water and onshore, there has been significant improvements made. If you take, for example, Hairs Energies, we inherited, as I said, a production system that we have doubled, more than doubled the production in less than 4 years. The number of wells that are producing today are 3 times what are producing from what we inherited. And we have not drilled any new wells. We just took all the things that were in place that were either locked in or closed in for various reasons and have assiduously worked them to improvement. We have worked with communities in a more definitive way. We've worked with all the stakeholders in a more definitive way to ensure that everybody is on board towards achieving this goal. When you now look at energy transition, I think the conversation what we have always put on the table as Hairs Energies is that our focus for energy transition is about how we transit from an energy system that is deficient, that has a lot of holes, and we talk about energy poverty in sub-Saharan Africa and in Nigeria. And I think for all of us, either in our homes or in our offices or other businesses, we see the reality of the energy poverty and deficiency that we are struggling with. And the transition for us has to be from that energy deficiency to a future of energy sufficiency in a short period of time. And that energy sufficiency that we are talking about is not going to be one of either fossil fuels or renewables. It's going to be one that combines both, because the gap is so huge and the capital requirement is so huge that to do it any other way will be difficult almost impossible to achieve. So we have to use the resources that we have as a country and maximize them to grow, to fill our energy requirements. And it will require, as I said, both the sources. So it's oil and gas on one end, and it's all the renewable sources, solar, hydro on the other end, with the target that in a foreseeable future, very definitive period, we should have 100% energy sufficiency to power our economy and provide livelihoods and quality lives for the teeming population of Nigerians.
Yes, the holistic approach I see you're talking about, and that explains the transition of energy. So what's the progress of Nigeria's oil production? It's something you should be able to talk about too as well.
Yes. So I would say, if you look back at recent past, a year plus, 2 years ago, the production had dipped to, at some points, even below 1 million barrels of oil per day. But there's been significant growth in the course of 2024 to the point that we now produce 1.75 million barrels of oil per day. So almost 70–80% increase. And in that increase, there's our footprint as Hairs Energies, because we have doubled our production. And so that our doubling of production is a key component of that increase we have seen. So the target for this year is to grow the production to 2.1 million barrels per day. And the Minister of Petroleum for Oil even says we should be aiming for 2.5 million barrels of oil per day. So the ingredients to do that is also in there, with the big divestments completed and with the indigenous companies coming together and collaborating more effectively. Will all be providing a major component of that growth. And then for 2027, the stated target is 2.7. But if we're able to achieve 2.5 this year, of course, the aim for 2027 will be significant. And it's important to know that this oil we're talking about is emblematic of the growth that will also happen in gas. With oil comes a lot of associated gas, which will be fed into into the market. For example, ourselves, we produce over 80 million scf of gas today, and all the gas we produce goes into the domestic market. It's for power plants, it's for gas-based industries, and it's for other uses, providing jobs, livelihoods, quality life. In fact, the estimate is that the gas we produce and feed into the market provides power for over 2 million homes in Nigeria. So that's the kind of impact we are looking at. I think there's been, it's suffice to say that there's been significant progress, and that progress and that track record gives confidence for the way forward.
That's really great to hear. I mean, we're just watching the interview yesterday with the essay on energy, and what you've said ties in very nicely with the president's energy policy direction for this administration. But let's talk about next steps. Following yesterday's successful event, what are the immediate next steps that industry players and regulators need to take to ensure that Nigeria's oil production targets remain achievable? You talked about, the possibility and the potential of hitting and even surpassing that target, and the role that Heirs Energies will play in achieving that. But tell us, what are some of the key things, the key takeaways from last night's meeting?
Yes. So the immediate step is to, as I said, so there's a lot of existing infrastructure that enabled 2.4 million barrels of oil per day production around 2020 to happen. So rebuilding that position alone will take us to about 2.5 million. And we're only at about 1.75 billion barrels of oil per day. So what is the immediate next steps? The first thing is to reopen, is to ensure that we reopen all existing wells, facilities, pipelines, as the case may be. There's still quite a lot locked in. If you take, for example, ourselves, when we took on our asset, only 30 wells of the existing wells were producing. And we have tripled that today to over 100 wells producing. That has allowed us to increase our production from 25,000 barrels, which we got from the previous operator, to well over 55,000, to 55 to 60,000 barrels, which we operate today. When you then look at what's the way forward, so for all the other companies or indigenous companies, there's going to be a massive effort to reopen the existing wells and facilities. And during the discourse yesterday, one of the companies mentioned that there are 600 in the asset they just acquired. There are about 600 wells, only 200 are producing, and 400 are closed in. So there's going to be a huge program to get that 400 wells back. So I think the first objective and the journey we are on is getting back to where we were around 2.4, 2.5 million. And it's after that we now start talking about expansions, new investments, in both onshore, in shallow water, and in deep water. As you may know, there has been the presidential directives which were key incentives provided to the oil and gas industry last year by the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It was around fiscals, it was around development, it was around investment thresholds. And with that, there's been significant improvement. You also notice that, so beyond this initial phase of reopening the existing wells, there's then the further stage of new developments to catalyze new oil production and new gas production. There has been recent announcements by some, particularly international oil companies, of FIDs onshore for gas and in deep water for oil. So all of this count, and that will then be the next phase beyond the immediate phase of reopening the closed-in existing infrastructure to maximize the production to where we were last.
I'd like to say thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for joining us here on The Morning Show, and good luck in your future endeavors.